Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol. My name is Ashwin Mohan, and you're watching a special edition of Deal Central, where we get you the views that matter on the subjects that matter from the world of mergers and acquisitions, private equity, and equity capital market deals. On the show today, we are putting the lens on International Women's Day 2023. And who better than top investment banker Manisha Girotra, the CEO of Moelis India, and the ex-CEO of UBS India to share her journey, her story, her challenges, and of course her lessons from 3 decades of blockbuster deal making. Be it the $12 billion Vodafone Hutch deal, be it the $6 billion Moelis India deal, or in recent times, the $2.8 billion Birla Group LRS deal. Manisha, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to Moneycontrol.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, especially in the context of the International Women's Day. Thank you.
Right, Manisha, let's get going. So you're a woman leader. You're a role model for several working women professionals. You're a women's rights champion. What do you make of this year's theme for International Women's Day, which is embracing equity? Now, what they're trying to sort of say is that it's not just embracing equality, but one needs to keep in mind that women come from several different backgrounds, several different contexts. So therefore, one needs to keep those factors in mind before you decide the unique set of support systems that each of them need to succeed. So embracing equity, how would you look at that theme in the context of domestic deal making?
I think it's really relevant today, especially given where the world has moved to. We need to have mindsets and practices which actually, encourage inclusiveness and equality. So when I started my career, it was difficult for women to work in a lot of industries, manufacturing, especially because, it was not safe to go to a lot of towns, cities, etc. In today's world, where technology basically helps you and pretty much enter any and access any sector as a woman, we still aren't seeing enough women. Look at the startup sector itself. There is no barrier to entry for a woman, but how many women do we see? And really, it comes from the fact that women founders get far less access to equity than her male counterpart. And that really comes from the unconscious bias that a woman suffers from. As you said, there is a mindset that if there is a male, if he's an engineer, if he comes from a middle-class background, so he's very like-minded with the investor who's looking to invest in that company. And basically, the investor looks for commonality and goes and invests in that company. So the woman gets dealt out without even having started out, so to say. So I think that mindset needs to change, and that's what we are fighting. We're fighting patriarchy at home, and that then spills over to work, and we're fighting those mindsets at work too. So I think a lot of that needs to change for women to be taken more seriously in every industry, whether it's investment banking, tech, manufacturing. Women are trying hard. I think at the entry level, women are coming in, they're investing in education, families are investing in education, but I think they're getting dealt out because of these unconscious biases, which basically work against them and can be very detrimental psychologically for women, and they just feel frustrated and opt out.
Absolutely, Manisha, you hit the nail on the head. In fact, this reminds me of a famous quote by the Chinese Communist Party leader Mao Zedong, who once said that women hold up half the sky. He was, of course, referring to the need for women to come out of the domestic households and enter several professions. Now, interestingly, that quote finds prominent place in your LinkedIn profile, which says, "Women hold up half the sky. It's time we own half the world." Manisha, are you satisfied at the participation of women in investment banking in India? Do you think they are being taken more seriously today than perhaps in earlier decades? And also, what more needs to be done to have more Manisha Girotras who are right at the top, leading iBanks and calling the shots?
So I think my quote was referencing to more than just investment banking. It was basically that women just don't have an equal access to, let's say, real estate, to wealth that that the kind men have. To look at even the digital economy. Women today have less than 40% women have access to internet, less than 35% women have access to smartphones. In a digital economy where your smartphone and internet is your tool for job creation, women don't have that. So basically, right. As women, we just don't have the right tools. And this used to happen in the past when you didn't have access, when there was no land in your name, there was no real estate in your name. And as you know, Ashwin, the most important criteria for gender equality is financial inclusion. If I have a seat on the table, if I have a say on financial matters, is when I get respect in the family. and not having access to these instruments, these tools, real estate, wealth, is basically what creates this unfair access for women and unfair treatment of women. So that's really what the context of that quote was. It was more than investment banking. It was that, look, you need to basically equip women with tools so that they can come out there and perform and earn their own space. In investment banking, I think at the entry level, we're fast solving the supply issue. As I said, a lot of firms, whether it's investment banking or private equity, are trying to at least make sure that 60-40 ratio in favor, 40% women are taken in at the entry level. So I think that funnel is getting sorted. I think where we're losing out is at the mid-level, where the male income gets better, or the children come along, or the parents and the in-laws are aging. The woman is basically asked to step behind. And that really, the problem is that a woman's career is not seen as a career. It's just a job. It's a job which is there for financial increment of the family, or, or seen as, oh, let's let her go and pass some time before the babies come, etc. So I think when we stop seeing a woman's job as just a job, when we start seeing her aspirations as important as that of a man, is when people will stay on in their careers, especially investment banking, which, as you know, can be very hard, right? It's long hours.
Right.
If there's a live deal, M&A deal, you don't have weekends, you have to travel, you have red eyes, you have to travel at short notice where the clients want to meet. So I think that needs a whole family to support you if you want to take on a career like that. And that's really where I think women are stepping out. So we're not seeing enough come through the funnel. And that's really the biggest frustration. Despite a lot of these flexi hours, work from home, the pandemic taught us a lot of that, you can support women in that way. And a lot of organizations are doing that. But I think we're still not seeing them, spill out of the funnel because of the simple reason that we have a very patriarchal mindset towards a woman's job.
Clearly, more work needs to be done. And patriarchy continues to be the evil. Now, Manisha, in the past, in an interview to Vogue magazine, right, you've spoken about how in your early days as an iBanker, you faced latent sexism and bias. There are several incidents that you quoted. For example, many felt that you were there just to get a good CV till you got married. Despite you heading the team, some people chose to speak only to your male colleagues. This one particular incident that really shocked me. During an overseas roadshow, you were actually asked or told to iron a male colleague's suit. That's absolutely shocking and abysmal. The question that I have for you, and this is something that many of our young women viewers would also like to know, what was your coping mechanism? How did you cope with that? And how did you also not allow that level of toxicity to affect you? And also give a very strong signal that, hey, I'm here for the long run.
So I think there's no easy answer. It was tough because especially when I started off, you didn't have organizations, have, HR, etc., where you could actually go and discuss these things. There wasn't that awareness for the fact that it's good to retain women in the workforce. Let's see what we can do. You were pretty much seen as an outsider, and you had to make the male counterparts and male bosses and male ecosystem believe that you're here for good. So in that you couldn't really go and talk, Ashwin, about your about the challenges you're facing openly to anyone, because then it would be seen as a weakness. So it was very hard the initial few years. When I look back, I think those were the hardest years, because as you said, it's very difficult to get a punch on your chin every day and then come back and say, look, I'm fine, I'm knocked out, but I'm going to come back. I think I learned the hard way. A lot of times, as you said, I was pretty much the pizza girl and the coffee girl for the office. Go down, go get the pizza, go get the coffee, because it was seen as a waste of energy and effort to invest in getting me to really understand cash flow modeling, etc. Because I was going to go away in 2-3 years. And I think 6-8 months into doing this, I just pushed back. I said, I'm not going to do this. And I said it to the one person, especially who would, really make me do these errands, that, look, there is an office boy. They are there for this reason. One off, if we all used to come in very early. So if there's no one, I don't mind. Nobody minds going down, but I'm just going to not do this on a daily basis. And I think that's the thing with bullies, and with people who come with that patriarchal mindset, they don't even think that what they're asking for is wrong. So you need to push back and tell them, look, this is not acceptable. And I think 4 out of 5 times people do understand that, look, they pushed the envelope a lot. So I think I pushed back after while I say this today, at that time it was very hard, because you worried endlessly on what implications this will have for you, because
absolutely,
you
right.
the person. But I think I decided at one point that, look, if that's what I'm going to do, then I haven't come into this job to just pick up coffee cups and pizzas and bring pizza. So be it. Then I will just if they don't want me, then I'll just quit. So after a lot of agonizing, I learned how to push back on the kind of comments you mentioned, on the kind of errands you mentioned, and just the triviality that I was subjected to. Took a long time. It was work in progress, but somewhere along the line, just by trial and error, I learned. And sometimes it was tough. Sometimes it was not so tough. As you said, a lot of time, a lot of male clients wouldn't even make eye contact with me. So over the years, I started going just as a female team to some of them, especially, and and then they were forced to at least look at one of us. they could take their pick, but they did. I just left the guys out. So just to make them more comfortable that here's a team of 3 women.
Kudos to you, Manisha. You really battled a tough phase in the early stages of your career. As you're recounting some of those incidents, I really must say kudos to you, because it can be really tough, when you're put in a corner like that, and you have to develop a thick skin and just focus on work. So hats off to you. Manisha, you got married at the young age of 24 to a fellow iBanker, Sanjay Agarwal. Tell me, since both of you would have clearly had busy routines as busy deal makers, did that perhaps facilitate better understanding and balancing of your professional and personal priorities? Because that's something a lot of women struggle to maintain or find that perfect balance. It's really tough, because there's always so much more expected from a woman than a man in a marriage.
Yeah, look, when I was younger, I used to think the fact that we are both investment bankers really helps, because he understands what demands my work has, the fact that I need to work on weekends, the fact that I have to take a red eye. I think that's important, when it's, I have a family full of doctors, and the fact that both husband and wife are doctors help, that, suddenly in the middle of the night, there is a call for a surgery that an aunt of mine who's a gynecologist have, the husband fully understands. So I think having commonality in careers helps. But I think more than that, Ashwin, the having commonality in mindsets is more important, because today's careers are so different, right? Your spouse can be a gig worker. You could be, working for a hard-nosed investment bank or a tech company. I think what's most important is to find a spouse who basically, as I said before, respects your career too. Respects the fact that you want to make something of your life. You want to be the hero of your own life. And I think if you can find a spouse who respects that, that's the most important thing, irrespective of what segment each one of you works. But yeah, in my case, I think the fact that we are both investment bankers helped. It had its own challenges too, because we both had sometimes same conflicts and same meetings to rush to, or same flights to take. So that posed challenges. But I think somewhere commonality of purpose also helped.
On a lighter note, did you guys ever land up for the same pitch, for the same mandate? I'm sure that would have happened at some stage.
Yeah, maybe in the early years. Now the market's big enough. When I started, it was a pond. So and a lot of it was government disinvestments and privatization. That's what the investment banking was all about. So I think in those cases we must have. But then there used to be like armies of people who used to come at that point from every bank. So I don't think we were directly in confrontation with each other. But yeah, I'm sure we have competed in the past.
Right. Manisha, how did motherhood change you as a professional? You have a daughter, her name's Tara. How did you juggle, your schedule and also cater to the needs of your daughter? What was the support system like? You've spoken about support from your father, from your husband, but motherhood is a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really, challenges you in every way. You basically have to multitask. You play with guilt, because don't forget, Ashwin, in the Indian context or in any context, the woman's first report card is that of a nurturer and a caregiver. So the first thing I'm evaluated on by women who are my peers or by my family is on how good a mom, how good a homemaker am I. So I think A was just that pressure. B was my own guilt, since I was born to a mom who was just a perfect mom and a perfect homemaker. So I wanted to replicate that in my life too. And I think, of course, the challenges of running UBS at that point. So I think it was just juggling constantly. I think somewhere I neglected myself as a person. Something has to give, and I think what I neglected the most was me time. That was just not on the table. It was either constantly working or looking after my child or doing something with the home. So I think I just became like a robot program to just continuously work. So it's challenging. As you said, you have to create an ecosystem around you. I was lucky that I'm born to a family where the family was very supportive. I got married into a family where everyone was a career woman. So, My mother-in-law was supportive. My husband used to call them mums on wheels because they would be, flying in from Delhi at short notice when Sanjay and I had to travel. So I think that helped. You need to have a system of nannies, of neighbors, of friends, of parents. It does really take a village to bring up a child, and that's what happened in my case, that I had this ecosystem of friends and family which supported. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you, and it is, and the first few years are very challenging. And I think any woman who braces up for motherhood and a career like investment banking just needs to be very resilient. There will be challenges, there will be tough times. But I think what you need to remember is that these things pass. Kids do get unwell, kids get better, kids do learn how to do their homework on their own, kids do learn that they don't have the best tiffins and going to school like some of the other stay-at-home moms do. They all survive. So I think you need to just tell yourself that and not burn yourself out with the guilt.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hopefully the women out there are listening to you, and perhaps they'll take a cue or two on how to handle family once they become mothers as well, because that's a really tricky phase for them to handle motherhood and also being a professional. Manisha, moving on. Now you're also on the boards of several big ticket companies. You're on the global board of Naspers. You're also a board member of Ashok Leland, Mindspace Business Park Street. Now, as you're aware, in recent years, SEBI has been pushing India Inc. to have more representation in terms of more women directors on the board to spur diversity. What's been your personal experience so far? And I want a candid answer over here. Are Indian boards willing to listen to women directors when it comes to suggestions on a critical aspect involving the company? Or do the men on these boards perhaps need to be much better listeners?
So, as you said, I'm on the board of Naspers. In the past, I was on the board of this French company called Technip. I think in these companies, about 40 to 50% of the board is women. It's a very, very equal, gender equal board. So, there I didn't see any of the hurdles. I think in India, initially, when I joined the boards, I think there was a huge resistance as to how the woman is going to contribute, because especially if you're joining old economy companies, which are commercial vehicle manufacturers, steel, oil and gas, it was, the mindset was, do women even understand this industry? So I think there, as I always say to all my women counterparts who are aspiring to join the boards, that, you may get in for the wrong reasons, but do stay in for the right reasons. You may be getting in because regulation wants you to get in. But after that, the onus is on you. Read up, invest in yourself, ask the questions. Don't sit shyly in a corner. Women tend to not speak up as much as men. I mean, I know of men on boards who will know much less than a woman, but will talk much more, right? So I've always encouraged women who are wanting to join the boards that, look, ask the questions. Don't be embarrassed. Maybe one or two questions are wrong. That doesn't matter. A lot of the male directors also ask questions which are wrong. As board members, you're not meant to know everything, right? It's so ask the questions, be confident, and then stay in for the right reasons. And I think I hear from a lot of companies, who are clients of mine who've had such good, favorable experiences with women that they're actually wanting to go above that one mandatory board director. And I know of many companies such as Marico, etc., who already have 2. There are some who have 3. Novartis. So I think there the onus is as much on the woman, because you're right. The mindset is, this is not somebody who's going to be naturally understanding this business. To even take what she says seriously. A lot of women have said to me that even when they've spoken up, they haven't been taken seriously. But look, keep pushing, and at some point you will win the credibility and the respect that you deserve.
One quick question, Manisha, before we move into deal trends and deal activity across sectors. Has the boys club, the so-called boys club in the world of deals and India Inc. become a little more receptive, become a little more accommodative as compared to earlier years? What's your
I think so. I think, look, somewhat better. Would I like it to be much better? Yes. I think the patriarchal mindsets at home do spill over to work. Also, the fact that a woman is at home seen as a caregiver, nurturer, you carry that same mindset to work. So yeah, I think you still see that mindset. But I think, look, today the younger women are really confident out there, aware of their rights, pushing forward. And I have great hope in these women if they stick on. The issue is really, as we discussed before, that, you need the funnel to be stronger, and you need to support these women through the years when the kids are young, etc., and in the mid 30s when they drop out. But if they stay, I think these women are so much more confident. The organizations are so much more aware on diversity. things like flexi hours, etc., have become a way of life, that I'm hopeful that come 10, 15 years from now, we won't have a conversation like this. Wishful thinking, but I'm hoping for that.
No, absolutely. Great advice and a lot of key inputs from you for all the women out there, whether you're bankers, whether you're iBankers or not. This probably applies to all women professionals. Manisha, now let's you focus and speak about deal activity, right? We've had a sort of a sluggish start to 2023. A lot of global headwinds. Equity capital markets really haven't taken off. We haven't seen an IPO launch in a long time. Usually you see many IPO launches post the budget. That hasn't happened. So tell us, what are some of the key deal trends that you expect to pan out in the rest of the calendar year? Recently, there was a report by Deloitte, and that Deloitte report was optimistic. It said that they expect deal activity, especially M&A, to be robust in India because many foreign companies are keen to increase their domestic presence. What's your take?
Yeah, I think you said it. I think there is such global, it's unprecedented global activity that we are seeing, in terms of whether it's Ukraine, Russia, whether it's the inflation, as you know, whether it's the European slowdown, China, what's happening with COVID. They've now suddenly lifted all the bans, but last year you did see a severe lockdown. I think all of those aspects led to so much uncertainty that people were just scared to deploy capital. Private equity today has $1 trillion of capital, but they aren't deploying it because there just isn't leverage available. And if leverage isn't available, the returns don't stack up, especially at the kind of valuations emerging markets like India have. But I think as we are seeing the worst over on inflation, you're seeing the US economy stabilize. My view is that second half, you will see private equity come in and deploy capital. Sovereign wealth funds have continued to deploy capital, as you've seen, right? Whether it's the Canadians or the Middle Easterners, they are deploying large capital, and they'll continue to do that. Private equity needs to come back. Leverage needs to come back for those private equity, and the returns need to stack up, which I think with the correction in valuations they are. So I think second half you should see more deal activity, inbound deal activity. Second, the second theme, which is already playing out and will continue to play out, is domestic consolidation. A lot of companies are seeing stress, whether it's in the tech sector or some other sectors, and basically you'll see either the large caps like the Reliance, Tatas, Birlas consolidate these players, or then they will consolidate amongst themselves because otherwise they run the risk of perish and die. So I think that's the second theme. The third, which continues, and we just recently announced a transaction for Sun Pharma, as you know. The outbound continues. The outbound doesn't continue like it did in the past, very large transactions for scale. I think what it continues for is for certain niche segments or niche, expertise strengths, which IT services and pharma companies will continue to do. So I think you'll see outbound in that. You won't see like the outbound we saw earlier, which is Bharti Zain, looking for global dominance, etc. Because the Indian economy is big enough. It's a $5 trillion economy, and all the large conglomerates are saying we'd rather spend the dollars in India and grow and scale here. But I think you'll continue to see outbound in that specific areas of IT, tech, pharma. So I think these three themes will play out. Conversations are very alive in all these three areas, and I think second half you should see more deal activity.
Right. You've given us a clear roadmap going ahead in terms of what are some of the trends you expect, and also some of the sectors that are expected to be active going ahead for the rest of the year. Manisha, we're coming towards the end of the show, but I want to quickly slip in a rapid fire round. So if you're ready, should I shoot?
I'm not ready, but let's try it.
All right, here goes. And there are 5 of them. Which past or present woman deal maker do you look up to, and why?
Well, unfortunately and very depressingly, I didn't have role models when I started. I think today I admire Jane Fraser, the CEO of Citi. For a British woman to come out there and be the CEO of a large US bank is very admirable.
All right. If Manisha Girotra was not an investment banker, she would be?
So if you asked me this question in my 20s, I would have said a professor or a pilot. Today, I would say I want to just go and set up girl child. I'm passionate about educating the girl child. So I just like to go and set up those schools in Himachal, where I come from, and scale those up.
Your favorite track, which you love humming?
Nowadays, I like the Shersha song, Rata Lambia.
All right. Manisha Girotra's idea of a favorite meal at her favorite holiday destination.
Oh, my favorite holiday destination is Shimla, where I came from. I grew up there, and there is a coffee house called Indian Coffee House, which was set up in 1957. It's colonial and wow, serves the best coffee and dosa. So I still, every time I'm low or have lost a deal or something's gone wrong, I think about Indian Coffee House and the filter coffee there.
Right. Final question for the rapid fire round now. I know you're an avid golfer. your hubby and your daughter are tennis fans, so a lot of sports fans in the family. Now, since you're an avid golfer, I want to ask you your most memorable moment as a golf player or a golf fan.
I think my favorite moments of golf were being a caddy to my father in Naldera Golf Course at the age of 5. He used to take me in the snow and I had to carry that whole bag even though I was a kid. And he would make me go look for the balls. I was always scared that there would be a tiger or a lion coming because, Simla, the woods are so thick. There were no tigers or lions. But as a kid, I was scared. But it was also the thrill. I don't think I've ever had that. I had a more thrilling time than that, just, being a caddy to my father.
Lovely, lovely. On that nostalgic note, Manisha Girotra, let me thank you so much for sharing your story, your experiences, your challenges, and I hope they were useful to all of you who have tuned in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
With that, it's a wrap on Deal Central. This is Ashwin Mohan signing off. Stay tuned to Moneycontrol for more news, views, and updates.